Carol and Stephen's life together was perfect.
I've got to get going.
Right this second. Hey, baby.
Hey, sweetie.
I love you.
There's one small problem.
Hi, I'm Ralph. I'm his brother. We're twins.
Are your parents,
Yeah.
It can tear them apart.
I think you're gonna let me know that everyone in your family's a midget.
They're not midgets, Carol. They're dwarfs.
Whatever.
Or bring them together.
Hey, welcome. I'm Steven.
Ah, there you are. This is Stephen's father, Bruno, and his mom, Kathleen. And over behind the bar is Stephen's brother, Rolf.
Hi.
You could have prepared us for this, don't you think?
If you embarrass me, I'll never speak to you again, so just get it together.
How's everybody's drink?
I think maybe I'm pregnant.
When the going gets rough, it's only the size of your heart that counts.
Would it really be that big of a deal if our kid was a dwarf?
You knocked up this great girl, and you didn't tell her that her baby's probably gonna be little.
I'm not like you.
We are so cute and cuddly. Don't discriminate against us.
You said these parties got a little wild. I never expected this. There's sure a lot of midgets around here.
You better back off, Goldie Hawn. My man can do what he wants to do.
I'm ready for an adult relationship.
What is this man doing in your bedroom?
A walk down the aisle.
Steven's he's a very lucky guy. Just hope he's smart enough not to screw it up.
Is just a beginning.
There'll be rough patches, there's no doubt about it.
Canal Plus and Langley Productions proudly present command performances from Kate Beckinsale, Matthew McConaughey, Patricia Arquette, and in the role of a lifetime, Gary Oldman. Tiptoes.
Welcome to They Call Us a Movie, testing the strength of friendships one terrible movie at a time. Subscribe to the podcast on iTunes and other podcast services by searching They Call Us a Movie. We are part of the Main Namey Network, and to find more from us, check out the website at themainnamey.com or on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at The Main Namey. We're also now a proud member of Geek Vibes Nation. You can find them at gbnation.com. Welcome back to They Call Us a Movie. This is Anthony Delvecchio, and with me as always is Dan Aquino and Mark Meyer. Say hello, gentlemen.
Hello, friends.
Hello. This movie that we're doing here, I can't imagine how they talked everyone into this, because I couldn't imagine going up to Gary Oldman and going, hey, you're going to do this for an hour and a half, on film. Are you ready?
That's commitment to the craftsmanship.
Exactly.
Man.
It was just, I don't know. I've been thinking about that all day. Not much of a, thinking this will be a good bit or anything, but that's been rattling in my brain since I saw this movie. Like, I would love to be behind those conversations.
Gary Oldman is a professional, all right? He's a consummate professional, and he likes challenges, I think.
Sorry, I thought he was going to polish off an Oscar.
Right, yeah, Oscar-baity, for sure.
Yeah, this movie's another weird one, but before we get into that, you guys want to discuss what we watched this week?
Sure, yeah, since, we're still stuck at home. I actually took full advantage this week. I watched two new, I don't know if they're brand new movies to Netflix, but I know one of them was, I watched The Disaster Artist from James Franco. And man, that movie is so out there. And it was a tough watch, but only because it's meant to be cringeworthy. Obviously with Tommy Wiseau being just out of his rocker. But I enjoyed that movie a lot. It was a lot of fun. And then I watched Uncut Gems, and I don't get it. It wasn't a bad movie, but it was there's so much anxiety in it that I couldn't really enjoy it. And Adam Sandler sounds like his one buddy who does who's the quarterback from Waterboy. Do you know who I'm talking about?
Yeah.
So his accent is just kind of all over the place, but yeah, I know everyone praised it so much, and I could see why, but it just wasn't for me, I think.
Okay. What about you, Mark?
I haven't watched anything this week, outside of my normal, just things on the internet. I think the longest thing I watched this week was the entire show of Last Week Tonight. That half hour might be the longest thing I've watched this week, just kind of trying to do things in short bursts. Not as much to talk about as last week, but it's nice to hear Dan checking out a movie such as The Disaster Artist, knowing you like The Room, right, Dan?
I've never seen The Room.
Okay, then.
Oh my goodness. Why haven't we done The Room yet?
Well, I was going to say we should, once, the apocalypse ends, we should try to get to a midnight screening because I'll be closer to you guys now.
Mm-hmm.
So we can make that happen. So yeah, I am full bore into going to see that movie, man. It's out of control.
Okay, I take back my thought on using The Disaster Artist because I thought you had held off after seeing The Room for some reason.
Yeah, this week I did a bunch of revisits. Can't really remember anything that I've seen this week that I haven't seen before. I watched through each of the Back to the Future trilogy.
Oh.
I usually watch the first one at least once a year, maybe not, if not more. Watch the second one, and the third one I watched for the first time in a very long time, and it's not as bad as I remember it being. There's definitely not as big of a drop off between the second and third one as people want you to believe. I think there are some, like, the middle part of the second one is not as good as I remember it, especially when, like, they go to the house and you have Michael J. Fox playing his own daughter. It's just kind of really goofy. What else did I watch? I watched Clueless, which is a movie that I've seen 1,000 times. I revisited Black Klansman. And then I revisited a movie called Stay Tuned, which I haven't seen since I was a kid, and it stars John Ritter and Pam Dauber as parents that get sucked into their satellite dish. And it's got a whole bunch of parodies. It's like, oh, what's his name? I think it's the principal from Ferris Bueller, if I'm not mistaken. Jeffrey Jones.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you want his name, I'm looking it up.
Jeffrey Jones plays basically the devil / satellite dish installer, and he sucks them into the TV to play some games from hell, and then they get sucked into a bunch of different channels that are all like sort of like things, but have a weird twist on them. So like they get sucked into a movie called Driving Over Miss Daisy, among other different parodies. And there's a little moment where John Ritter gets sucked into Three's Company, which is a funny little nod. But Pam Dauber does not get sucked into Mork and Mindy, so that's it. And that's about it. I watched a documentary about, what is it called? It's called Have a Good Trip, Adventures in Psychedelics, which is on Netflix. It's just a bunch of comedians and actors and actresses talking about their experiences with LSD and shrooms. Kind of interesting. It was kind of light and, interesting. Sting's on there, and Sarah Silverman, and Paul Scheer, and I think Rob Hubel and Nick Kroll, all those kind of people talking about that stuff. It was interesting. It's fascinating. I find it fascinating.
A couple buddies of mine and I were talking about Guillermo del Toro and how he picks weird movies to direct. Mm-hmm. So, I like Guillermo del Toro, but I've seen a few of his movies. I'm not a huge fan of a lot of his work, but I talked about how I enjoyed Pacific Rim because it's just so ridiculous. And my buddy says, I saw that movie while I was on acid, and it was one of the best experiences of my life because everything is like the monsters are already colorful and there's a lot of color in the movie. So everything's just really coming at me. And, my mind couldn't handle giant robots fighting giant monsters. And I was just freaking out. But I loved every second of it. I was like, you know what? I think that would make Pacific Rim 100 times more enjoyable. Just being just tripping balls.
Now, would this have made you more pissed off about the helicopters, Dan?
I don't even think I would know what helicopters were if I were tripping. I would just see, I'd probably see like Rock'em Sock'em robots coming at me or something.
So that's kind of what we watched this week, and now it's time to get into the movie that we watched this week. And technically, this was Dan's pick this week. So Dan, do you want to introduce your movie?
Sure. Yeah. So full disclosure, this was not my first pick. Mm-hmm. I had my first pick ready a couple weeks ago, and I was very excited because it was very corny and very over the top silly, and it was an actor who we had not yet covered, and I had picked Jackie Chan's The Tuxedo. And right before we were going to watch it, Prime took it down, and I'm left scrambling for a movie, and I had a couple of movies where I wanted to go, but Anthony was saying, none of them seemed on brand, and I agree, none of them were really our style. And he suggested Tiptoes. So I looked at the letterbox, and I was hooked immediately. Just knowing that Gary Oldman plays a little person, I needed to see it for my own two eyes. And I'm not disappointed that I did that, because this movie, oh boy, it's wacky, man. But not wacky as in like comedy wacky. It's just, what were they thinking wacky?
Yeah, so this movie is Tiptoes from 2003, directed by Matthew Bright, who directed Freeway with Kiefer Sutherland and Reese Witherspoon, and it seems like this movie ended his career. It stars Matthew Broderick, not Matthew Broderick. It stars Matthew McConaughey, Kate Beckinsale, Gary Oldman, Patricia Arquette, Peter Dinklage, Debbie Lee Carrington, David Alan Grier, and Michael J. Anderson. It has an IMDb score of 4.4 and a Rotten Tomatoes score of 29%. So, gentlemen, yeah, where are you coming with Tiptoes, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, I was totally brand new to this movie. I didn't know it existed. I was content not knowing it existed. And you brought it up, and it has such a nice, it has a caliber of stars here, where you hear Matthew McConaughey, and everyone loves the guy, but you got to remember that this is pre, Dallas Buyers Club. Obviously, this is early 2000s McConaughey. You're not getting the good stuff.
Show it some respect. It's the McConaughey.
I can't pronounce it correctly, so I'm just trying to save face. Yeah, and then this movie hit before everyone else hit, right? So you have pre-Game of Thrones Peter Dinklage, but then you have Kate Beckinsale, who's like always on the cusp of being a good actress, but then she chooses Tiptoes and just sets herself back to square one. Yeah. So she's always just behind the eight ball, it seems like.
Yeah, I mean we've got 3 Oscar winners and we've got an Emmy Award winner in this, and Kate Beckinsale. So yeah, as you mentioned, they're all kind of like in interesting places in their careers at this point. So I kind of before I do, Mark, you go and what's your
Yeah, so the whole time Dan was talking, I've been thinking of Matthew Broderick playing the Matthew McConaughey character, and how much of a different movie this would be, with just Matthew Broderick being a complete dick in the entire movie. So anyway.
I mean, how many people did Matthew McConaughey kill? 0.
Exactly. I didn't even. No, so coming from this, I came in pretty much blind outside of the fact that Gary Oldman and Matthew McConaughey was in it. So when Oldman first shows up, it took me 5 minutes to realize that was him and not a little person actor. So then I was like, okay, I hope this is a wild ride here of, just Gary Oldman doing Gary Oldman stuff. But it was just, this movie, I couldn't place. It felt like, it was just a breeze. Like I never checked the time on it, but I can't really remember why things happened. But I am glad we did watch it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I will say one thing about this movie. It moves pretty fast. I mean, because we've watched 2 movies back to back that are 90 minutes long, and the length of them are very different. I think Love on a Leash feels like it's 2.5 hours, and this movie feels 90 minutes. It's not good in any way, but like just nothing happened really. Yeah. It's one of those weird like mid-90s sort of romance movies that are just kind of middle of the road, and they're really inoffensive, but then you add offense to it by just having this really misguided plot about Matthew McConaughey hating his little person family. Yeah. I've never watched a movie where what you assume is the protagonist of the film is completely irredeemable throughout it. And not even throughout it. He makes a turn and halfway through the movie that is scary and violent and upsetting.
Yeah. It was very confusing because in the beginning of the film, McConaughey he's a defender for little people. Everyone's like, oh, they're dwarfs. Like, no, you don't say that. They're little people. Or no, midgets. They call them midgets.
staunchly says midget like 4 times, and he has to keep correcting her. And then he corrects her once, and she's like, I don't care about that stuff.
Right.
Like, damn, Kate Beckinsale, you kind of suck in the beginning of this movie too.
Well, that's the thing. There's like a total role reversal between McConaughey and Beckinsale. But yeah, at first you're made to believe McConaughey is the good guy here, you know, coming from a family of little people and trying to educate Beckinsale, who's, you know, his girlfriend / fiance, whatever. But then all of a sudden, he gets scary at the towards the end. Mm-hmm. I was not expecting that whatsoever. That twist, that was a twist worthy of M. Night Shyamalan, man. Oh my God.
In the hospital scene when he's holding the baby, it looks like he's about ready to throw that baby out the window.
I was convinced he was going to kill the child. Like Beckinsale, don't give him the kid.
He's got those wild eyes that we saw in Serenity. It's like, I'm about to murder this baby.
You can kind of see the apprehension in Beckinsale's eyes too, because he's like, let me hold him. She's like, okay, try not to bash his head in if you don't mind. And I was convinced he was going to try to, whoops, I dropped him. But oh man, that was a very tense minute, I would say, of cinema.
Yeah. Before we get too far, I just kind of wanted to discuss, because we mentioned that this cast is pretty strong cast. I just kind of wanted to go through where they were at their times of their career. So Gary Oldman was obviously he was big in the 90s. He had, The Fifth Element, Air Force One, Lost in Space, The Professional. And then he was just about to hit Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, as well as Batman Begins. Would have been 2 years after this. Yeah. Kate Beckinsale was just coming off of Underworld, same year. Underworld came out in 2003, as well as Tiptoes. Pearl Harbor was 2001, as well as Serendipity. So those were her breakout roles. And then we were just a short while away from her starring in a Martin Scorsese film, The Aviator, in 2004, as well as Van Helsing. And then she'd just go on to do Underworld and Click, all those movies down the list. So she was right in the heart of her just becoming as big a star as I guess she would ever be.
Yeah. Yeah. She was always, just like I was saying, she was always right there. And then she decided to do Click. And then it was like,
her decisions aren't great, to be honest with you.
Exactly.
If I'm looking at this.
Yeah. And she's a fine actress.
Yeah. And she has a marketable face.
Oh yeah.
She's absolutely stunning, and she's great looking in this movie. It's amazing how someone could squander such beauty.
She's ageless. I think she's probably mid 40s by now, right? Early to mid 40s.
1973. She's not far from 50.
Yeah, there you go. But she still looks great.
Yeah. So, but there's not much great stuff. I mean, she's got, what do we got here? We got Vacancy. After Click, we got Vacancy, which I think is a horror movie.
Suspense thriller.
Yeah, with I think it's Michael Shannon. Is that right?
Isn't that James Marsden?
This is Straw Dogs. Kate Beckinsale, Luke Wilson, Frank Whaley, Ethan Embry.
That movie was so bad. I watched that for 31 days of horror.
Right.
And that left a bad taste in my mouth.
But then Underworld sequels, Whiteout, I remember, because she's got a scene where she's just in white underwear, I think.
Michael Keaton's in that movie, right?
I think that's White Noise.
Oh, White Noise. Okay.
This is where she in Antarctica.
Never saw that.
Yeah, I haven't seen it either. I just remember all the production stills were just she's in her underwear in this. The Total Recall remake, and then bunch of Stoneheart Asylum. Absolutely anything.
Do we blame her or her agent?
It's got to be a little bit of column A and column B, right?
Man, yeah, she has not had a great turn of the century. Matthew McConaughey, where was he? 2003. He also had How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. Before that was Frailty, which is kind of similar to Vacancy, I think. And then he went on his mid 2000s run of movies like Sahara, Two for
Fool's
the Money,
Gold.
Failure to Launch, We Are Marshall.
This is the rom-com era of Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah. It's got Tropic Thunder thrown in there too. Surfer, Dude, Ghosts of Girlfriend's Past, and then The Lincoln Lawyer is kind of where he starts to turn it around in 2011.
If I
Lawyer, Bernie, Killer Joe.
If I could describe Tiptoes in like one sentence, it's a 2003 movie that screams 1993.
Sure. Yeah.
Right? From the way everyone dresses to the writing style to even just like the pacing, it seems like this is just a 1990s rom-com movie.
Yeah.
But it never got past 1990.
Yeah. And then so apparently there is a Matthew Bright cut of this film that was shown at Harry Knowles Button-Umathon in Austin, Texas, and they recut it. I think it was supposed to be like 2.5 hours long, an hour and 50 minutes, like 150 minutes. Which, yeah, if this movie was 2.5 hours long, that deserves to be cut. And they cut it down to like 90 minutes, and I think if the Wikipedia is correct, basically at the Sundance Film Festival 90-minute version screen, the director Bright criticized the film and lambasted the producers for editing his film, leading them to drag him off stage.
Oh, jeez. That might have been why this was his last movie.
Subsequently, Bright would not direct another film and later said that the film's failure hurt his career. Yep.
That makes sense. This movie doesn't need a director's cut. It's cut and simple. Just you have a love triangle that's kind of weird and comes out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And that's it, really. You don't need 2.5 hours of that.
No. It's just a really misguided movie. And there's a lot of reasons. It's the picking Gary Oldman to play a little person is a weird choice.
I think this movie would have been better if it just leaned into more comedy. Like, you have McConaughey and Oldman. They're not brothers, or maybe they're friends, family friends or whatever, and they're trying to win over Beckinsale. And McConaughey is obviously he's the good-looking guy, where, of normal height, he's brash and he's cocky. But Gary Oldman's character is, if you want to keep him as the little person for God knows whatever reason, you have to do that. And he's just the nicer guy. He's not crazy like McConaughey, but he'll take care of you. He'll have you home by 10, and he'll hug you goodnight, and he won't be a jerk. McConaughey, he'll keep you out all night, and he'll do blow off you. And yeah, you might live you might live on the edge of danger there, but you're not going to be fulfilled with Matthew McConaughey. You'll be more fulfilled with Gary Oldman.
Sure. Yeah.
I kind of went off on a little tangent there. I apologize.
I'm like, I don't.
Where do we go from here?
I don't know if that statement has ever been made. To compare Matthew McConaughey and Gary Oldman, but sure.
This movie is forcing us to do it.
It's funny that they're supposed to be playing twins and they're like 10 years apart.
Yeah, and look nothing alike, really.
So you guys want to get into the plot?
Sure. Yeah.
Alrighty. Before we do, Dan, what do you got for us?
Okay, so the shtick. Sorry. Top 10 with Tia, good friend of the podcast. She has her own podcast where her and her crew go down the top 10 lists of the week. So, for instance, top 10 villains or top 10 on-screen couple. So make sure to listen to that. That's at Geek Vibes Nation, along with all the other awesome podcasts that they have. Go check it out.
Okay, and we're going to take a moment to listen to some messages from friends of the podcast. So we will be right back.
Hey, this is Ken M.
Padawan J.
Coach Duffy. From the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour podcast. Every week, the ODPH is talking sports, movies, TV, comics, and more. It's always a parlay of topics on each episode. You can find the ODPH on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Stitcher, Podbean, and wherever you find great podcasts, such as the one you're listening to right now. Don't forget to check out OchoDuroParlayHour.com, where you can find the links to all of the ODPH social media accounts, links to the bands whose music you hear each week on the show, hashtag 607 podcast info, and parlay points, our companion blog section of the show. Thanks for listening to the ODPH. Now get back to your regularly scheduled podcast.
Welcome, travelers. Seems like you're looking for a story. Well, I got one for you. It involves adventure, friendship, and all sorts of...
Earl, why don't you tell him about that time I stole that big-ass melon?
Yeah, I was going for more...
Or you could tell him about the time I kicked her ass, Earl.
I wouldn't ever tell him.
Do I need to get my ref gear on?
Okay, everyone, shut up. Now come with me as I tell you a story from afar. Hey everybody, my name's David. I'm the DM for From Afar Podcast. A From Afar Podcast is all about four friends separated by distance, but brought together by adventure. Hope you all stop by and give us a listen. Thanks.
And welcome back. Now it's time to get into the plot of Tiptoes. We open on Gary Oldman driving around on a three-wheeler and then immediately dissolve into something else. That something else is Kate Beckinsale's enormous painting of pink curls. And Kate Beckinsale is kind of dressed, and we're going to probably talk about her wardrobe a lot throughout this episode. She's dressed like someone from the 90s, like from, I don't know, Reality Bites or something like that. Basically, Matthew McConaughey shows up as Steven and tells Beckinsale that he's got to go out of town for family stuff. And he's very coy about what exactly he's doing. I think Kate Beckinsale's Carol is her name. She has a side comment about how he's going to meet his girlfriend or whatever. And then Kate Beckinsale tries to give him a blowjob, and he refuses, which is ridiculous. The most ridiculous thing in this movie.
Is it though? I think the tramp stamp is pretty ridiculous.
It was the mid 2000s though, man.
It was that prime tramp stamp.
That's why low-rise jeans were a thing.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. This is like it was one of those where like they're definitely going to stop this. But and then it kept going. I'm like, why are they doing this so early in the movie?
They get pretty far too. Like you see his tidy whities.
Yeah, it's like
oh shit, all right. Now it's getting interesting.
This movie's not so bad.
I don't know what Anthony was talking about.
And then he leaves.
Yeah,
she is about to get a blowjob, and then he's just like, nope, peace.
That should have been our first time.
Yeah. From an early 2000 Kate Beckinsale, he refuses a blowjob. Ridiculous. This is pre Pete Davidson Kate Beckinsale.
Oh, yeah. She's not tainted, is what you're saying?
Yeah. Then we dissolve again into Gary Oldman and Peter Dinklage peeing on the side of the highway. Gary Oldman is playing a little person named Rolf, and Dinklage is playing a French anarchist named Maurice. A bus pulls over and kicks out Patricia Arquette, who sports some unfortunate cornrows, and Dinklage offers her a ride on his chopper. Then Matthew McConaughey arrives at a benefit dinner for little people. Little People's Defense League specifically, where his uncle is one of the leads of it. And David Alan Grier is the MC with one of the worst wigs in history. He's not playing David Alan Grier. He's playing some celebrity. They really never go into what he is or what he does or why he's famous.
Yeah, he's well known enough that someone asked for his autograph later in the movie.
Yeah.
It was almost like a James Brown impersonation. That's what I kind of got from it.
I don't really know what he was doing.
Neither do I. I don't think David Alan Grier knew what he was doing there. Just go up there and be funny, dude. Oh, okay, whatever.
Steven meets up with his parents. His dad is played by the backwards talking little person from Twin Peaks, and they say that Steven's brother hasn't shown up yet. And then Steven goes dancing with some of the little girls, and then at that moment outside, Steven's brother Rolf shows up on his chopper with Maurice and Lucy, which is Patricia Arquette. Maurice and Lucy go inside while Rolf and Steven talk outside, mostly about his chopper, and his parents would not be happy of him riding it around. And then Maurice and Lucy immediately get kicked out of the benefit for stealing food.
Yeah, which they had that whole thing with Patricia Arquette's like, how can they say it's stealing food when food's from the earth or whatever? He's trying to play that weird parent.
This is an early theme that, it continues throughout the movie where Peter Dinklage's character wants to do something and is denied whatever it is he wants to do, and he just goes off on a cursing spree.
Mm-hmm.
It's pointless. It adds nothing to the story.
Yeah.
And it just leads me to believe that, like maybe they just wanted Dinklage for his star power at this point.
Yeah, what was he? I didn't get to him, but this was right around his breakout, which would have been The Station Agent, which was 2003, same year. Okay. So same year he had Station Agent, Tiptoes, and Elf.
Big year for him.
Yeah. But I would think that they probably had that role as big as it is, just so that they can not feel like they made a movie about little people with the only little person to have a substantial role was played by a person that wasn't a little person.
I will say he has a decent French accent.
Yeah, I mean, Peter Dinklage is a pretty good actor.
Yeah.
He would have been great in Gary Oldman's role.
Thank you. There's no reason not to have him switch with Gary Oldman.
Yeah.
Yeah, let Gary Oldman be the cranky little person, you know.
Or don't have him in it at all.
Sure. Yeah. Have him as the David Allen Greer role.
Sure. With a bad toupee.
I mean, you're making him be a dwarf. What's the difference of putting him in blackface?
Well.
Oh,
wow. We'd have to ask, I guess. Is there a term for a normal sized person playing a little person? I don't probably not, so. Right?
I don't know. I mean, I was gonna say maybe this is the only time it's ever happened, but I mean, they used to do it on Martin all the time. But he was supposed to be a little kid, and then Tim Conway had all those dwarf videos. So
all I know is both of these guys are being totally wasted in this movie.
Absolutely. Yeah, because like the trailer has like in a role of a lifetime, Gary Oldman. And it's like, he doesn't really do much in this movie.
They must have been talking about the director's cut.
Maybe, but
do you think Oldman saw the script and was just like, well, wait a minute, this is daft. Why am I playing the little person when we have other little people here? And he showed up the set. Like, listen, you realize there's a ton, like pointing, there's a ton of other little people here that could literally be in my character. Like, no, but you're Gary Oldman. Yeah, I appreciate that, but I can't pull off everything, you know. You know what it probably was? Bright had probably seen The Lord of the Rings. It's like, well, you know, if they can get someone to play a hobbit, I can get Gary Oldman to play a little person. Can't be that difficult.
Right.
They just didn't figure out the camera angle thing.
Right, yeah. Forced perspective should have been how they accomplished this. That'd have been great.
Someone should have taught him that, yes.
Not sew him into a couch.
He's just 12 feet further away than everybody else.
Yeah. Just shouting his lines. I love you too, Kate Beckinsale.
So Steven and Rolf, they have their conversation, and then Steven goes home to Beckinsale. So we get some McConaughey and some tighty whities. He crawls into bed, and he still won't tell her where he was, which makes her feel suspicious. And then she tells him that she might be pregnant, and he has a giant meltdown.
It's so good.
I am also surprised that it took him 12 minutes to get McConaughey shirtless.
Right? Yeah.
Well, we had him pantsless in the first 5.
Yeah.
So just working our way.
His facial expressions when he has his little meltdown is kind of crazy.
I sent the picture. I took a screenshot of it and sent it to you guys. It's like it wrinkled his brain, man. Like, I might be pregnant. What? But
it's
how?
It's kind of like in Zootopia when the sloths realize that the joke there's a joke, so it's just like that slow realization.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's a total blonde moment.
And I like that she keeps going, "Are you okay? How are you doing with this?"
First of all, ladies, I'm not siding with McConaughey here, but don't bring it up at 3:00 in the morning.
True.
You know, just wait till breakfast. Mm-hmm. Let the man have his OJ or a cup of coffee, and then drop the bomb on us. All right?
Yeah.
It's
and you
so
gotta
much
present
better when
it.
we've eaten.
Yeah. You have to present it. She kind of she brings it up to him like it's a problem.
You know what it was? Do you remember that scene in The Other Guys where Eva Longoria and Eva Mendes, I'm sorry, where Eva Mendes and Will Ferrell are discussing Will Ferrell's past, and she sings that song to him, like Pimps Don't Cry, and then she says that she's pregnant, like the worst possible transition ever. That's this.
Yeah, sure.
Where were you? I was just out. I'm pregnant. What? There's no buffer.
Yeah. It's like, we could have just went to sleep. Give me 6 hours. Could have told me as I woke up. Guess what? I'm pregnant.
Right. Yeah, give me the day to stew on it at least. So, like, now I'm not going to sleep.
Yep.
I'm going to be. This is going to have long-term consequences. Kate Beckinsale. You'll see.
He gets mad at her and he gets out of bed. And then the next. Meanwhile, Rolf, Maurice, and Lucy pull into a motel, trying to get a room for the night. The owner thinks Lisa is a prostitute, or Lucy is a prostitute. For some reason, I said call her Lisa. What is it? Her name's Lucy, right? Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. I think last week's movie, the girl's name was Lisa.
Yeah.
The owner thinks Lucy is a prostitute, says he wants to sell to prostitutes, but then they, tell him that she's not. So he sells them a room at a discount because they're two little people. Get it?
Yeah.
Then in the room, Maurice and Lisa get drunk on morphine and cognac while Rolf goes off to take a shower. So they're making out, and then Maurice's back hurts, so Lisa tries to adjust it for him, and he gets mad and drinks more. Then Rolf comes out of the bathroom and tries to go to sleep as Lisa and Maurice get to the fucking. And then Maurice falls off the bed and then stumbles into the bathroom to throw up. Meanwhile, Rolf tells Lucy that he has ulcers and herniated discs in his back.
Yeah, it's a little people problem.
Yeah. Rolf goes to call a doctor. Maurice yells at him not to, so Rolf leaves. So then Rolf goes to an old girlfriend's apartment, and she looks like a little person version of Gwen Stefani. And she's living with some guy that says isn't her boyfriend, but they've fucked twice. The guy she's living with comes home and says he's quit his job, he needs money for the bus. And he finds Rolf in her bedroom, and he freaks out. And he slaps Rolf right across the face and starts punching him until Sally hits the guy with a boombox. And then Sally goes to call the police, and Rolf leaves while Sally tells him to, hey, we gotta wait, tell him what he did to the cops. And he's like, nah, fuck off.
Yeah.
So he leaves.
Yeah, just basically, you tell them, and then walks out. And I'm like, during this whole scene, I'm like, they do nothing to establish why he would go to her.
Nope.
Like, at all. Like, nothing that happens in this scene goes, oh, I get it.
Probably in the bright cut.
Yeah, they explain it later on better. When McConaughey's doing his whole speech in bed about Rolf. But at this point, it's like, like I said, maybe it's in the Matthew Bright cut.
Yeah.
What kind of guy do you have to be beat up a little person, by the way? All right, I mean, just full on pummeling Gary Oldman. It's not cool, man.
Yeah, he hits him pretty hard.
Or do you think that's better than just like being super disrespectful and just like picking him up and like throwing him outside? You know what I mean?
Drag him across the room.
He does.
Like, Rolf tries to escape by crawling out of the apartment, and he picks him up. He picks him up by his legs and pulls him back in.
And also, the guy has a cane. Gary Oldman has a cane. Come on, dude. I guess they're trying to show that he's a lowlife.
Yeah.
But I don't know, man. Even lowlifes have some standard, I guess, or some code.
Right. You just kind of take his cane away. It's like, oh, that's all I'm gonna do to you. Fuck you, dude. Throw it out the window.
Right. Go get it. Fifth Tannen style.
Exactly. So he leaves, and then in the morning, we get Carol watching her pregnancy test reveal positive, and that's the scene. Meanwhile, Steven goes to work as a firefighter boot camp instructor, and he's an enormous asshole the whole time.
I love this scene.
He just makes fun of a guy named Chuck for his weight the entire time. And gets called out by a female firefighter who in a better movie would be the subject of some sort of subplot, but is not.
Yeah. Again, that could have been parts in the longer movie.
Yeah.
Because there's another scene where that could have definitely been a match, point, with later on when they go to the party.
Yeah.
But no, she just shows up and goes, I want to get that guy's autograph, and then leaves.
Yep. Yeah, she could be a point of tension and drama between Steven and Carol, but they aren't.
The entire time he's yelling at Chuck, I just keep thinking like, this is the Camp Krusty episode where, we're not leaving here until this Christmas ham gives me a pull-up.
Yeah. So then after that, Rolf shows up at Carol's and introduces himself as Steven's brother. And we realize that Carol might not have even realized he had a brother, let alone a little person brother. And Rolf mentions...
I want to say, first thing, she believes him immediately?
Yeah, I mean...
Well, why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
No, I know, but that was the first
He's
thing
got
I
a cane, Mark. What's he going to do?
Right. People with canes don't lie.
Yeah. He just got the shit kicked out of him.
And I think it's also a well-known fact that little people are incapable of lying. Right? Sure. I think that's, or is that just a stereotype?
Folklore.
Yeah.
If it isn't, you just made it one.
Yeah, there we go.
That's not a bad stereotype to have, though.
No.
So Rolf mentions that he got the shit kicked out of him, so Carol takes out a first aid kit, puts rubbing alcohol on some of his cuts. Then Carol finds out that Rolf and Steven are brothers, and that Steven has never mentioned her to Rolf. Rolf goes sit down on the couch where they've sewn Gary Oldman into the couch with a couple of fake legs. And then he falls asleep, so Carol puts a blanket on him.
Yeah, so the only thing confusing is Matthew McConaughey's character is supposed to be away for a week, correct? Or something?
For a couple weeks.
Yeah, and there's still the ability for her to drive to where he's at?
Yeah. He's fucking that other girl, right?
Yeah.
In the bright cut, he's fucking that other woman.
Yeah. And she was intimidating, that woman.
She was like 6'6".
Yeah, she's on the taller side, and she can carry a full-grown man, because I think you have to be able to be a firefighter.
Yeah.
So I think
she towered over McConaughey. That's all I know.
Right, and I think that's what McConaughey liked. I like smacking him up a little bit.
Well, I guess he figures with he needs more chromosomes. So if she's tall and if he's a dwarf, as he calls himself, then maybe he'll cancel each other out.
Right. Yeah, they'll get like a 5'9".
He needs a tall woman to get an average kid.
He needs an Amazonian, is what you're saying.
Exactly.
It's very sad how his character takes such a huge turn in this movie.
I know. Yeah, it's wild. It's such a weird choice.
Yeah, it comes out of left field, really.
Yeah.
Because when he's talking to Rolf, he loves him, right? They're joking around, and they're shooting the shit together. And then all of a sudden, man, it's just like, my family sucks.
Yeah, I wonder if McConaughey had ever any questions of it. It was like, so I see here in this movie that's more or less very lighthearted and could be a real moment to showcase, little people actors. I just become an enormous asshole at the end for no reason. Completely irredeemable.
Right. And they even try to make him seem like he's on the road to redemption, and then they just cut that. They nip it right in the bud.
Yeah.
Nope, he's still a dick.
Yep. Just there's no reason why he has to be such a prick in this movie.
No,
this movie doesn't need an enormous prick in this. It doesn't need it.
Right. Yeah, because I don't think anyone goes from being a good person to just a total waste of human life that quickly.
I mean, to be fair, we don't know that he's a good person.
You kind of at least they make it seem that way.
Right. We don't see any character flaws up front.
Right.
Well, they definitely rear their ugly head immediately when he thinks about the idea of him having a kid that's a little person.
And he does fat shame.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty harshly.
That should have been the first sign.
Yeah.
But at the same time, that guy was terrible at putting out fires, Chuck. He's trying to shovel the fire out with, he's trying to shovel the dirt on the fire, and he's missing completely. So, and it doesn't help when Matthew McConaughey, his beautiful face, is yelling at you. Right? You're already feeling shamed by being in his presence, and then you can't even shovel dirt correctly.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah, I mean it's a firefighter, dude. It's not the military. Dial it back a little bit.
Right. Yeah, we're not in Full Metal Jacket here.
Yeah, that intensity is not really conducive to firefighters.
I think that's true, right? Because I don't know very many firefighters, but I can't imagine they have someone screaming at them at all times.
No, I feel like you need to be calm, collected in the face of an inferno to be able to do things properly and to clear out a building in the proper way.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't have command screaming at you go get into that building, goddammit, right now. And you're like, oh my god.
And it feels like this isn't out of the ordinary because that quote unquote love interest person just basically tells him to stop, and then he goes, I'll take 5.
Yeah. What we're saying is hashtag defund the fire department.
Is that what we're saying?
This is what we're saying, right? People like McConaughey shouldn't have those jobs.
Listen, if that's what the moral of the story is, then sure.
That's in the bright cut.
Yep. It's the whole thing in the bright cut, yeah. So, back at the motel, Maurice is recovering in bed after Lucy has put some gems on him. Because she's a free spirit, guys. And the maid knocks on the door because it's 3 p.m. and she wants to go home. I stan the maid. I totally get that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. She's not getting paid enough to deal with this.
Yeah. So she goes against the manager who says checkout is at 12. So Maurice's plan is to shoot him, but instead Lucy goes out and beats the manager with a phone. So then they have to pick up all their stuff and leave. They get kicked out of the motel. Carol shows up at Steven's work with Kate Beckinsale's lucky striped hat. As mentioned, Beckinsale agreed to take scale if she could wear this hat in this one scene, and the producers had a fit on set, but the director won the argument, which might have only been the only argument he won throughout this film. But to be honest, this hat is a distraction.
It has no place in this movie.
It looks silly. It's like a Cat in the Hat.
Right. It's like
it's a sleeping cat.
It's a Tim Burton style, like Nightmare Before Christmas hat, right?
It's like a night before the poem A Night Before Christmas. This is Ma in her kerchief and I in my cap. This is the I in my cap sort of hat.
And what a weird demand to have, right? I'll be in your movie, but I wear my goddamn hat. You got yourself a deal.
She just had like a free couple of months. She was like, yeah, sure, I'll do this movie, but I wear my hat.
Right.
And I'm sure it went, can we see the hat first? No.
No questions asked.
No questions asked.
I would love to be hot enough where I could make outlandish demands and have them met.
Yeah.
That'd be great. But yeah, I'm going to be in your movie, but I have to wear my slippers the entire time. What? When you're like, damn, this is set in, Alaska. Doesn't matter. I wear my slippers or you don't get me.
Gotta get some of that hot woman privilege, right?
Well, yeah, I guess that's what it really turned out. I mean, she worked for scale, which helps, obviously. But then, you're getting an obviously beautiful woman, a good actress, but if you allow
an actress good enough for this movie.
Sure.
She's not Kate Beckinsale's not a bad actress, but she's
not great.
No one ever said she should have gotten an Oscar for The Aviator, which many people got nominated for that movie. So
she's like the dime store version of Jennifer Connelly, I think.
Sure.
I mean, I like Jennifer Connelly maybe more than I should, but to me they're very similar. But I put Jennifer Connelly just a little bit higher. Gotcha. And if you're the director and you allow this to happen, I think you've already lost control of the set, and then you don't deserve your cut at this point.
Well, I mean, like I said, if you've got some sort of a comedy or a romance movie that's 2.5 hours long, you don't deserve your cut. Everything should be 100 minutes maximum. That includes you, Zack Snyder.
Learn how to tell a story.
Yeah.
I wish McConaughey would have pointed out the hat during their talk. Like that would have been so funny, right? They're having this serious talk and just right in the middle of it, like, hey babe, what's with the hat? Just like totally derail the conversation. Like, if we're gonna do this, we have to be in this all the way. I agree with you, and no matter what this child is, we're gonna love him. What's with that fucking hat? What are you doing?
Yeah, she didn't even have it in the other scene. She decided, I'm gonna go talk to Steven. Got to wear my hat.
Right in this 90-degree California weather.
So she shows up and she tells Steven that Rolf showed up at the apartment and keeps saying the word midget throughout this entire conversation, even though Steven keeps telling her that they're dwarves. She wants to know if their kid might be a little person. He says it's possible, and Steven says they could just adopt instead, then tells Carol to go home. Basically, Steven is pro-abortion throughout this entire movie. That is the tension in this film, is that he really wants her to say, let's get rid of this kid.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, it's
without saying it very much.
Yeah.
I think they do bring it up. Or I don't know if they've ever actually say abortion, but they have the talk, and that's when he says we could adopt.
Yeah, and I think this is when we start to, like you said, his character change rears its ugly head.
Yeah. We then get a scene where Maurice and Lucy make out at the park, and it amounts to nothing. We cut back to Rolf arguing with Sally on the phone as he hangs up in anger. And this is at Carol's apartment. She tells Rolf that she's pregnant, and he says that he has a friend that can refer her to a specialist doctor. And then Rolf then takes Carol to meet some family members, his uncle and his cousins. They give her some advice about raising a child that's a little person, and they're all super helpful and supportive. And she gets very emotional about how nice they're being to her, and she cries. Late at night, Steven calls Carol. He's avoiding her, and she's shot with a macro lens for some reason, where you only see Portions of her face throughout the entire thing.
It felt like it was shot in like a Skinamax proportion.
It's very weird because it's just cutting between her shot like that and then Matthew McConaughey shot in a regular medium shot. Like she's shot like she's on one of those sex phone hotline commercials.
Yeah.
Hot girls are waiting for you to call.
Hey, stud.
It's like eye, lips, phone. It's just shots of parts of her face. And he's so upset about being invited to a party with little people that he tells her his phone is going to die and he throws his phone in anger. He then invites the girl firefighter to the party.
It amounts to nothing.
Yep.
I was like, oh, here we go. It's gonna get juicy now, right? Because obviously you bring another woman to make your girlfriend jealous.
Yeah.
This is Chekhov's gun.
Yep.
Right?
It never goes off.
It never goes off.
It's the one time it doesn't go off.
Yeah, Bright said, fuck the rules.
Who the fuck's this Chekhov asshole?
I'll show him.
Yeah.
My producer produced Cops.
So Carol, Lucy, Maurice, and Rolf go to the party at David Alan Grier's house. David Alan Grier is a famous person named Jerry who has an affinity for little people, and he starts hitting on little Gwen Stefani. And Steven shows up with a couple of his firefighter hose. Tall one immediately calls everyone midgets, which Carol corrects, and then she goes off to try and get David Alan Grier's autograph. Then Maurice, inside, starts getting into a fight with Rolf's uncle. Maurice hates them because Rolf's uncle is the head of the Little People's Defense League, and he feels like they don't take drastic enough measures. He basically thinks they should gain rights through a revolution. Then Rolf takes Maurice aside and tells him to get the fuck out because he's just an agitator and he's being mean to perfectly nice people. So Maurice and Lucy leave. Rolf and Steven have a conversation outside. Rolf thinks Steven is ashamed of him and his family. Then Carol comes out and starts arguing with Steven too. Then Rolf goes looking for Sally and finds her fucking David Alan Grier. And then Steven goes to talk with Rolf and tells him to come home with him and Carol. And that's the end of that scene.
What a weird scene. Mark, you were saying how this party was going to get wild, right?
Yeah, that's Rolf says it to Carol, or she says it to him that like somebody mentioned that this guy has wild parties. And she's like, I wasn't expecting it to be true. And then all this shit happens in like a 3-minute period later.
Right. Yeah, there's no way. First of all, the most disturbing part of this scene is David Alan Grier making love to this woman with people just like half-heartedly watching.
Yep.
Like no one's really interested in it. They're just kind of there. Like, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, and also the Maurice fight, everybody's just watching it.
Right.
Like, this is when McConaughey picks up Sally and puts her on the chair.
That was a weird move.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very condescending.
Right? Yeah. I did notice that on my second viewing. I was like, well, that was odd. Like she's like a toddler.
Putting her in timeout. It's weird. Just a weird scene.
It is, yeah. For not much to happen.
Right. There's no development really.
No.
Right. If anything, I'd say the only development you get is that Beckinsale's character is coming around to, possibly having a child who is a little person.
She's working on the terminology,
yeah,
as McConaughey says.
And that's about it.
Yeah. Which could have happened anywhere.
Yeah, sure. It could have happened in the next scene, pretty much.
Yeah. Yeah, because Steven could have slipped and said midgets, and she says, actually, like, oh, look at you.
Excuse me.
Yeah. So Steven and Carol have talk in bed. And Steven talks about how raising a kid that's a little person is no picnic, and there are lots of complications. And then it goes on to talk about how normal of a life Rolf had growing up, even getting laid before he did. Then Steven might have had a circle jerk with a bunch of little people when he was a kid. But Carol makes the leap in conclusion, but he never denies it. So
there should have been a flashback.
And Steve asks if she's making a political statement by not wanting to abort her child. Carol suggests he sees a psychiatrist regarding his ambivalence towards his family. And then he acts like she shot his dog after that.
Yeah, it gets depressing from here, folks.
Yeah, it's a weird, like, he just can't not say something stupid. I mean, which is, that's super realistic.
Yeah, and it's
if I had a nickel for every time I've looked back and was like, well, that was a really stupid thing to say, wasn't it?
It's kind of on brand with early 2000s McConaughey, if you think about it.
Sure.
He says a lot of at one point he was known for saying stupid things and doing stupid things. Yeah. So
it's long not time ago he's playing his bongos naked.
Yeah, I mean, he's still connected to that. People don't forget. And yeah, this movie is just a lot of people saying the wrong thing at the wrong time and awkward silence almost.
Mm-hmm. So then we have a dinner scene where dinner introducing each set's of parents to each other. In this scene, I am 100% on board with Kate Beckinsale's attire, which includes a dog collar and a like light pink purple dress. It was good. I liked it. That's all I got to say about that.
That's all I got to say about that.
Carol's parents are surprised, but not particularly upset at the fact that Steve's parents are little people. Her mom was a little more reversed, but her dad fits right in, probably because he's an alcoholic.
What does he order? A 7 and 7?
7 and 7.
Yeah, that's how you know he's a real alcoholic.
Yeah, he's white. He's like wasp alcoholic.
Oh yeah.
But he's not though, because they're Jewish apparently.
And he seems like a cool dude.
Yeah. At dinner, Carol's parents have something to bring up. It's a real switcheroo because it gets dramatic, but it's only because they want to make sure they get married in a traditional Jewish ceremony because her grandfather is getting on in years and he's an Orthodox Jew. So nobody has a problem with that, it's just surprising because these are the waspiest looking people ever.
I would have loved if they did have a problem with it. Because that would make more sense, right? With McConaughey just like being a total jerk. Like, no way. We are doing Christian wedding.
They even make the joke. It was like, if he dies before the wedding, can we switch back to Catholic?
That's Oldman.
Yeah, that old Rolf.
Yep. So then there's a wedding in a park with about 20 people there. And Marisa and Lucy, I don't think get invited to it, but they watch from a picnic blanket. And Marisa now has cornrows, which is troubling.
Yeah, twice the offensive.
Steve and Carol are about to leave their wedding, but then she sees Rolf, so she gets out of the car to talk to him. She just wants to say thank you. And they talk about, what are your plans? And he says that he's going to go to his parents' cabin for the winter to get some writing done. And then she kisses him right on the lips.
Plants one.
Yeah, I'm surprised McConaughey didn't get out of the car and beat the shit out of him right there.
He would have been in his... Well, no, not really, because it's not Rolf's fault. But at least, have a stern talking to both of them. Like, hey, listen, this is my wife. Hey, listen, you're my wife. You can't do that anymore.
Can't be just random ass people on the lips. I don't care if it's my twin brother.
The time to do this was at the bachelorette party. If you want to make out with my brother, do it then.
Especially don't do this in public.
Right.
And then time passes and Carol has her kid. She had a boy and he does wind up being a little person. Steve gets really upset and punches the wall. The doctor suggests Steven to seek counseling. And Steven doesn't need counseling. He said he needs new chromosomes.
The hole in the wall would suggest otherwise.
Yeah. It's McConaughey versus Adam Driver. Who punched the wall better?
Well, I would say McConaughey, right? Because when Driver does it, he gives it like a, just like a hammer fist. Yeah.
Yeah. McConaughey, that's probably wasn't supposed to happen. McConaughey just punched a wall.
Also, did they mean to go to a little person doctor, or was that just kind of thrown in, you think?
So, I mean, obviously, because we don't get to see any scene between, like, ever them going to a doctor, as most movies that deal with pregnancies do. You get scenes of like, oh, here's the ultrasound and all that kind of shit. So we never get to see, was it just a coincidence or did they go to a specialist? Like, the uncle set her up with a specialist doctor because he mentions that, but we never see her ever go to it until she's already had the baby. Again, hashtag release the bright cut.
So many questions left unanswered.
Yeah. Steven comes back into the hospital room and tries to make up with Carol, the whole time looking like he's ready to toss his own kid out the window.
I was convinced. I was really nervous that kid was going to meet him in timely doom.
Or just like he's just going to reach into the crib and just like kind of like suffocate the baby with his bare hand.
While singing Hush Little Baby. Or just like humming it. Like, oh, Jesus, just staring directly into the camera.
McConaughey would just hum the Texas Longhorns fight song.
That's true, and somehow more creepier than Hush Little Baby.
This is for the Longhorns.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Horns. All right.
That'd be great. Just him saying all of his catchphrases.
You ain't Livin.
You know what I love about babies?
I get older, they stay the same age.
And they never get older.
Oh boy.
Oh jeez. I'm sweating so hard from laughing.
Oh boy.
Yeah, that took a dark turn. Even for our podcast.
You're on the same.
Swear to God, we don't drink on this podcast.
Yeah, we're completely sober. But yeah, that was. I'm glad he didn't do it.
Yes, yeah, that would have been upsetting.
Thank you for clarifying that. Then.
Well, listen, for our listeners who might have been thinking, "Ooh, I might have to dump this podcast." These guys are getting a little bit too much enjoyment out of Matthew McConaughey theoretically killing his own child. We do not condone that on They Called This a Movie.
No, it just goes to show how it's just so odd, as we've mentioned, how never seen a movie where who we assume is the protagonist becomes so irredeemable by the end, but here he is. He just takes the baby from Kate Beckinsale and just shows it so much disdain. And
he doesn't smile.
No.
He just looks at it like, why are you here?
Yeah, it's like my life is over.
Yeah.
Your fault. Later,
it stinks, but
yeah. Later, they're home with the baby, and it won't stop crying. Steven says it's because it hurts. Carol is upset that he's just angry all the time, and he says it's because he's a dwarf. The baby is a dwarf. He hurts. I'm a dwarf, he says. And then they calm down, and Steven says it's not working out, so he wants to separate because he can't deal with this shit.
Do they say how long it's been from when?
No.
Right. So for all we know, it could have been like a month or so.
Yep. Could have been like Geek 2.
Right. So weak-willed on Matthew McConaughey's part, man. It's like, this isn't a puppy where you're just like, you know what, this isn't working out. Well, we have to give him back. It's your kid, dude. Yep. You just don't decide. Flesh and blood. It's not for me anymore.
It's half of you.
At least give Kate Beckinsale the decency of saying you're going to go out for some milk and never return.
Right. Yeah. Now, who's living in the apartment too by the end? Is he? Because it seemed like it was hers, and he was just kind of like there.
And also,
it's so bohemian.
Yeah, it seems more of her style.
Yeah, it's like an art studio, and he's just kind of squatting in it.
And there's no way they could afford that, by the way.
No, I don't know. Firefighter and
exactly. Right. They're in, where are they? L.A., San Francisco.
I think it's L.A.
In L.A. Yeah, you're not affording that kind of apartment, dude. I'm sorry.
At the cabin, Rolf is hanging out with Maurice and Lucy, and Carol shows up with the baby and asks if she can stay with them for a while, and then kisses Rolf on the lips again.
Oh,
and then, Mark approves.
I truly think that we missed out on their relationship growing in this movie, right? Because it goes from 0 to 100 real quick.
Yeah, there's no indication that it's appropriate for her to show up at the cabin unannounced.
Right. Yeah, you don't even get the phone call.
Right. No, I mean in the movie, in the film, she shows up unannounced, but like they share maybe 2-3 scenes at this point.
Yeah.
And there's, besides like kissing on the lips at the wedding, it's just kind of like, well, you've let me acknowledge that this baby, if it winds up being a little person, that it can lead a perfectly normal, healthy, happy life. That's really the crux of their relationship. There's no romance in it until this point on, really.
Yeah. This feels like it should be the second half of the movie, not the latter third of it.
Right, not the last 20 minutes of it.
Yeah.
At dinner, Rolf says that his writing is getting syndicated in some papers, so he's starting to succeed. And we learn a little bit more about Maurice and his politics. Maurice has politics that 100% fit in with today's discourse. Personally, I'm on Maurice's side for this whole movie, though he is pretty misogynistic. So maybe not 100% on his side, but then Lucy and Maurice spend the whole night fighting because he said some misogynistic things about women's liberation and how they should all just be cooking and cleaning for him. And Lucy leaves in the middle of the night, and then Maurice leaves as well. At night, the baby starts to cry, and Rolf takes him and coddles him while Carol sleeps. She wakes up, but Rolf tells her to get some rest. He's got it covered. And then one day, Steven... Oh, what were you going to say, Mark?
I was going to say, I guess this is supposed to be the point where you go, this is who you fell in love with.
Right.
You know?
This is what a husband's supposed to feel like. Husband and father. One day, Steven shows up to the cabin, and Steve and Carol talk about their future. She says that he needs to be able to show that he loves Vincent, and that he doesn't have anything to offer this child as it is. Carol tells him that he needs to figure himself out before he can come back into her life. She plans to stay with Rolf for the time being because she needs help, and Steven cannot provide that. Steven kind of looks over his kid, doesn't really show any sort of affection towards him.
That's so funny. It was like, okay, bud, I see you. Good for you. See you in a couple years, I guess.
Yeah. See you at your first birthday. So Steve leaves, basically leaving his child to be raised by his brother. Later, Carol is in bed, shaken up by the conversation with Steven. So Rolf tells her to come with him, and he lights a fire outside. And then Carol tells Rolf he can kiss her if he wants. So he does. And that's the movie.
Ugh.
Just ends there.
What a terrible ending.
Right before Rolf seals the cuck deal.
It's wow. I was flabbergasted at that ending. Like, wait, that's it?
It just fades out. Even fucking Love on a Leash had a more complete ending than that movie.
That's bad. You know it's bad when one of the worst movies ever made has a more coherent ending.
Yeah. It's like, this is a scene that should have happened before Steven shows up at the cabin.
Yes.
You know, they should be having this moment that you can kiss me if you want to. No, us, the viewer, knowing full well, like, well, you're still married, girl. You got to keep it in your pants. But
yeah,
she's falling in love with Rolf and his ability to act like a human being, which is something Steven can't do while he's fucking that tall firefighter woman.
Yeah, I think it definitely needed to be explored that he's having a pseudo affair with Ms. Firefighter.
Mm-hmm.
Because then it just makes more sense why he's so distant.
Yeah. I think you kind of have to remove Maurice and Lucy from this entire movie and replace them with any scene that shows affection being grown between Rolf and Carol.
100%. Yep. To be honest, I think it's strange that Patricia Arquette is even on the cover of this movie.
Yeah. What a small role for her, too.
Yeah, it's like pointless.
She's pretty big at this point, right? And we didn't go through hers, but
she had a legacy at this point.
Yeah, right. It's been a while. Like, True Romance was like 10 years before this. Where was she in her? Little Nicky was a few years before this. Holes. She was in Holes.
That was a good movie
that year. Yeah, so a few years after she had a Stigmata, Bringing Out the Dead, Flirting with Disaster was a few years before that. She was in Ed Wood a few years before that. True Romance. I mean, we're back in the early 90s at this point. But yeah, I mean, she's a household name as far as, you know, the Arquettes are a legacy family.
Definitely. Yeah, and I agree. I think cutting out Dinklage and Arquette, their characters, you lose nothing from this movie.
Yeah.
Because they add nothing.
Yeah. She was also 2 years away from Medium, which lasted 130 episodes. So, you know, she carried.
Yeah, she wasn't on the downswing.
No, not at all.
Yeah, it's. You know what that final scene needed?
What?
It needed Kate Beckinsale in a strange hat.
Yeah.
Just to really seal it. Like
she has those
been
camo pants in that scene with Steve.
Do you remember the lead singer from Four Non-Blondes?
Yes.
She should have been wearing the hat that the lead singer from Four Non-Blondes wears.
The Mad Hatter hat?
Yeah, just the top hat. Like, you could kiss me if you want. And Gary Oldman just like going in for the kiss, but constantly looking at the hat. We're going to wear this? Oh, okay, I guess we're doing this.
Is there anything you would do to make this better?
Yeah, I would make it a total comedy. I wouldn't have anything to do with a kid, right? We don't want to see our main character hating his child, right? Don't do it. I would go full rom-com and it's like a battle between McConaughey and Oldman, and they're vying for Beckinsale's love. That's how I would make this better. And then, you know, like she could wear her weird outfits and whatever. And I I don't know. I think at this point you get rid of a lot of the fat, pretty much, right? You get rid of David Alan Grier's character. You get rid of, if you're gonna keep Dinklage, maybe make him best friends with Gary Oldman, and he's like giving him advice on how to get Kate Beckinsale. And that's kind of it. I would just make it not slapstick comedy, but just your average run-of-the-mill rom-com.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Mark?
I agree with everything Dan said. That's really good. I can't add much to that except to replace Matthew McConaughey with Matthew Broderick, and there we go.
And just have a lot of inner monologuing.
Yeah, have him break the fourth wall a lot.
Yeah.
Oh, God. The worst thing about Glory is his voiceover.
Yes. 100%.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I already said remove Maurice and Lucy and just replace them with scenes of a romance being formed. Maybe bring in the firefighter girl as a point of tension between the two that adds to them deciding to separate, because it just seems like at this point Steven just can't handle being a father in general, because babies cry, Steven.
Yeah.
Why didn't anyone tell me this?
Yeah. So
I wasn't prepared.
Yeah, that's all I have to say about that. Do you guys have anything else to close out on before we get into anything?
Yeah, I was thinking, and you could make it quick or however short or long you want it. So how I was saying, if I were a hot chick, my demands for being on a movie, like something strange, what would your demands be to be on this kind of movie? Like if some unknown director, like, we want you, name your price.
I'd want to wear like a t-shirt for one scene that just has something really vulgar on it.
For just one scene.
For just one scene.
Okay.
Yeah. See if I can get away with it.
Actually pretty good.
Like something like Calvin doing Hobbs or something like that.
Oh, that'd be good. Yeah, like peeing on one of like the logos, like the cowboy logo or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. I guess I would want to maybe drive up in something ridiculous.
Oh, that's a good one.
Like either go one way with it where it's like a really like impractical, expensive car that my character should not even be in the same ballpark as, like a Maserati or something, or show up in a complete clunker, like at the end of the goods, that car that pulls out of the lot.
That's like hilarious.
You just roll up in like a penny farthing.
Yeah. I roll up in a Model T.
They wear like those driving goggles.
What
do you do again?
And it's never seen
I
again.
write for a paper. How could you afford a Maserati?
Yeah.
That'd be awesome.
And in both of them, whether I'm in the Maserati or the Model T, I have the driving glasses that I take off. And that's the only time both of those things are in the movie. It's just I pull up to a house.
That'd be really good.
Yeah.
That'd be really good. Yeah, I don't know what I would do. I would want it to be something very jarring. Like maybe like a huge mole somewhere on me, or like I'm constantly changing my facial hair throughout the movie. Just like I have a full beard.
Like an accent. Just a weird accent.
Yes, yeah, something really jarring. Like in the first scene, I'm doing just a regular accent. Then in the next scene, maybe I'm doing a slight British. And it just keeps getting more and more British.
So essentially, you want to be Matt Damon from The Wall.
I guess. At the end of the movie, I sound like I'm a street urchin from like Mary Poppins.
On your boots.
Yeah. How about a smile?
2 bits.
You can kiss me anywhere.
Right.
You don't actually even have to be a hot chick to do that. Marlon Brando was doing that at the end of his career.
Well, yeah. If I were big enough, I guess for sure I'd want to do something and just be completely outlandish. Something super jarring.
You'd have to get pretty big to get to Marlon Brando at the end of his career.
Yeah. I mean, I would never be able to do something like that. I'm just saying,
There's not enough milkshakes in the world to get you to that size.
Hey, listen, don't underestimate my love for milkshakes.
Okay, you guys want to plug your shit? Make
Sure.
it quick.
At DAquino122 on Twitter, follow me there, and also our Real Play D&D podcast, Stranger Damies, is on Twitter and Instagram at Stranger Damies for both. Come hang out, say hi, and let us know what you think.
Yeah, so Stranger Damies airs every Wednesday. That's our D&D podcast, iTunes, Google Play, basically anywhere you can get podcasts. It's strangerdamies.podbean.com. And then we have Game Vault Pod on Mondays, every other Monday. We just had one this week where we talked about our favorite arcades and then picked out our retro roulette game that we do, that we play between the 2 weeks. So be sure to check that out every other Monday. iTunes, Google Play, GameVaultPod.podbean.com, I believe it is. We were lucky enough we ended up getting everything to be the same after being kind of having different names for everything. So just Game Vault Pod, and you should find us anywhere. Twitter, Instagram, all that good stuff. And our streaming schedule, we definitely stream Thursdays and Fridays. And the Fridays alternate with a Saturday, depending on when we're recording the podcast. And then, and then Sundays, Mondays, and Wednesdays are sort of, you'll know day of or maybe the day before if we come with something. So just keep an eye on the Twitter at Game Vault Pod, and it'll let you know when we're streaming. By the time you listen to this, we will be recording the podcast on a Friday, so we'll be live on Saturday.
Okay, yeah, and that's They Call This a Movie. You can find us at theycallthismovie.podbean.com or any podcast streaming app. Just search for They Call This Movie and we will pop right up. We are themaindamey.com, and that is the main website where we post everything up there, and you could find us on all social media at The Main Damey. So you just search The Main Damey and we'll pop up. That's Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. At The Main Damey, we'll be there. We are also proud member Geek Vibes Nation. You could find them at gvnation.com and on all social and podcasts by just searching Geek Vibes Nation. We got a bunch of great shows besides the ones we do. We've got Top 10 with Tia, Scene and Nerd, a bunch of other great shows. Check them out. There's something for everybody on that network, and we're proud to be members of them. I'm at Ant Delvec, and that's going to wrap this up this week for Tiptoes from 2003. The director of Tiptoes was Matthew Bright. So for Dan Aquino and Mark Myers, this is Anthony Delvecchio telling director Matt Bright to go fuck himself.